All right, welcome. I know this is a special week for you, Coach.
It is. It's my favorite, easily favorite week of the year. I'm trying to get people to keep piling on the bandwagon, but yeah, listen, I got plenty of room. Okay, there's plenty of room on the Thanksgiving bandwagon. It's November 25th, the year 2025. Welcome aboard, everybody. Listen to the Crushing Iron podcast. This is episode 892.
Yep. They'll come around. People wake up on their own time.
They will. Right now they're just fighting it, right? We'll talk about that later, but they're just fighting the Christmas. So yeah, it's happy. Good to be back. We only did one episode last week, one episode coming at you this week. We got Thanksgiving on Thursday. Hope everybody has an amazing week. Spend time with your friends, spend time with your family, eat the food you want to eat, and watch some football. Hey, watch some basketball. There's a lot of good basketball on this week, too. And embrace it. Enjoy yourself. Hop in a little turkey trot if you want. 5K, 10K, whatever they offer. Go out there, have a good time. But, yeah, it's one of my favorite weeks of the year. It's also a sneaky good sports week.
Yeah.
You got great college football on, all the rivalry games. You got NFL football as usual. You got some solid college basketball on too this weekend. I mean, it's a great listen. Just to kick back and relax. Hayden's out of school all week, which is pretty much par for the course every week. I feel like around here. But yeah, he's out of school all week. We're hanging around here. We're not traveling. We're just gonna soak it in, enjoy some family time. And he's doing a little pond hockey tournament starting on Friday, so that'll be fun. But yeah, great week. Happy to be here and. I imagine if it's getting cold here, it's got to be pretty. Wait, aren't they predicting like a bunch of snow or something up where you are?
Are they?
Or is that? I don't know. I've got a bunch of like emails and text messages yesterday about like potential like snowpocalypse like this early coming at you. But yeah, you might want to check that out if you need to make a last minute run to Quick Trip.
80% chance on Saturday.
There you go.
And
which
Sunday.
Means 0%. Yeah, which means 0%.
I know. Yeah, I mean, it's like, though that'll be nice. Yeah, I'll have to make sure I get up to Quick Trip early.
Yeah.
Maybe
get you a chimichanga and call it a day.
Yeah, well, I'll be a little bit on the road. I might be able to actually hit a real grocery store.
Let me ask you this before we get into the topic. Do they know your name up there?
No, they don't.
No?
At Quick Trip?
Yeah.
No, they don't know my name, and
like I said, you probably don't have to fill up. You probably only have to fill up with gas like once every 2 months.
That's about it. Yeah,
yeah, that's about it.
If anything, I go in there for coffee, maybe an apple fritter or something, just to say hi to some people. But they do know that I don't have a rewards card yet because I refuse. I probably would be a millionaire by now.
Dude, me and you both. I'm the same way. I mean, I know I could have probably saved thousands of $1,000s on these quote unquote reward programs. Like, you want a reward? I'm like, no, I don't. Reward card? No. Ace Hardware? No, I don't have a reward card. No, I don't want a reward card. I don't want a reward card. I don't know. I don't know what they entail.
Right,
I've always been like that. I know I could probably be saving, a lot of money. But no, I don't. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there too that are also, like, no, I don't want any part of the reward system. I just don't. I want to do my own thing. I want to fly a little more under the radar, which, you can't really anymore because people know everything about everything. You're being tracked everywhere. But yeah, I'm a non-rewards guy too. And I just kind of feel, and honestly, I kind of feel powerful when I say, what's your loyalty number? I don't have one. Oh, you do? You sign up? No, I'm good. Yeah. You're like, because usually everybody's like, oh, they got your loyalty card. No, I'm good. No, I'm good. The only like extra perk I have across any platform is Costco. Because you get a decent rebate. Yeah, and you got to, but you got to have it, and you get to get in 30 minutes early if you're a Premier member. And if you don't think that comes in handy, you've never shopped at Costco because you get in 30 minutes early and you're cutting time, big time, out of your Costco trip. And time is money, baby.
I'm just like, man, I'm pretty loyal to you guys. Why don't you just give me a better price out of the gate? I mean, oh no.
Nope. No, it's the same thing with like the tier program, like with Ironman. You're like all these races, you're getting emails about, races dropping, you can save this. You're like, wait. Nah, I don't need the early bird pricing. Yeah, you could I get an email yesterday from the Ironman reps like, hey, if you send out this email to all your athletes and 20 people sign up on January 1st. You'll be entered to win, like a $1,000 gift card and a $1,000 flight credit. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not doing it. It's like, is there a chance, there's a chance you could win? Probably. I'm not pushing that on people. All they want you to do is push product, baby.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Push it for them. It's kind of like I can't open a Facebook feed or an Instagram feed these days without seeing like, I'm looking for 5 new triathletes to try on this like sample program. Yeah, it's just all about push this and push that. But yeah, I'm not all about the pushing.
Yeah, the pull, right? The pull.
It's all about the pull. Yeah, the push. Well, yeah. I mean, we're talking strength training here. You got to push.
Well, yeah,
pull.
but it's also what is the line? Promotion, not or no. Promotion.
Oh, it's from AA. Yeah, it's attraction, not promotion.
Yeah, attraction, not promotion.
Rather than promotion. Yeah. So we're back.
Honestly, I believe in that deeply.
Oh, I do too. I mean, 100%.
We do. I think pretty much. I think we're probably one of the least heavily marketed operations out there.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely consider the podcast, a quote unquote marketing, but yeah, in terms of like our own personal social media and the amount of things I see on social media now about just it's a lot, because I'm always like, shouldn't you just be I'm not going to go on a tangent here,
but I'm going to just say it out loud because I listen to a ton of podcasts and they've pushed this. I always have, and they to even to us, the hosting service has pushed this thing about adding commercials in there.
Oh yeah.
And I've investigated it, and to me, there would be some money in it, but it's just like, to me, it's not a worthy trade-off, because a lot of podcasts I listen to that I know probably don't have as many listeners as us, and now they're just overrun with commercials, and I just stopped listening to them. And
I hate it.
I know it's silly in a way, but you can skip through it, and I get that. But they used to be podcasts that I would just like to put on and listen to, and now that, like, a lot of times the ads are annoying products or whatever the case may be that kind of set me in a weird direction. But I don't know. Yeah, we've kind of hung strong on that no ads thing, and I just want people to know that we've been solicited to turn over the apple cart.
We've been solicited. Yeah, I mean, and let's be honest, we'll get in the topic here in a minute, but I mean, I'm sure most of you probably fast forward the first 15 minutes of every podcast anyway, because all we do is have this kind of an opening. But still, wouldn't you rather fast forward through this and fast forward through like 19 ads of, precision nutrition and the feed and, somebody's avocado mattress and a lever treadmill or whatever other like snake oil somebody's pushing that's like the new flavor of the month? Yeah, we don't have flavor. Okay, we're just vanilla. We do, it's vanilla and chocolate. Okay, we're about as bland and as typical as it comes. And the majority of our listeners, I would say, well, at least still for the most part, the highest percentage they would be typical triathletes, right? Like, we started out the podcast with just like an endurance sports, like triathlon gear. We always talk about life and stuff, but we've obviously, it's the end of the year, and what we're going through and what we talk about kind of always mirrors what our athletes are going through or what we're going through personally. And whether you're a coach, an athlete, or somebody like trying to get back into sport, or you're trying to decide where you want to go in the sport, we had a conversation before we went live just about fighting. And you might think, oh, are they going to, they love to talk about sports. They're going to go MMA, all of a sudden with some Joe Rogan talk. No, we're not. We're talking about, fighting versus embracing. And, again, I think we've alluded this in some way, shape, or form in some of our other podcasts, but, we talk a lot about being flexible this time of year and really being flexible year round, in terms of embracing what your body and what your mind is telling you it's craving. And I think, listen, we live in a society where everyone wants to label or identify or be a part of a certain movement or political party or, nutrition scheme or team or community. Like, that's how we're wired, right? People like to be a part of something. And I think a lot of times when they start to go through these like low level identity crisis because they have always considered themselves X, and then they start to feel like they're like drifting away, they start to fight the urge to like stay with something that you're not. It's kind of like being in a, I'm sure in like an unhealthy relationship. Like you're in and in triathlon, endurance sports is hopefully a good, positive, healthy relationship for hopefully for everyone listening, but sometimes it's not, right? But so the example I'll give is like you continue to be in a relationship where you're not happy anymore, or things are bad, or getting verbally abused, or it's just like it's draining you and it's stressful and you're arguing every day, but you're just like, I gotta hang in. Like we've gone this far. What else am I going to do? And you just choose to continue to be miserable instead of just being like, hey, listen, like this isn't working out for me. I'm going to break it off. It's going to suck for a minute, but then I'm going to be so much happier. Triathletes do the exact same thing. They do it year round. They do it especially this time of year when they feel like they want to do something else or just do one thing or two things. And I think sometimes we really underestimate the amount of moving parts, right, that go into being a triathlete with the gear and the nutrition and the and all the extra things you feel like you have to have, right? With cycling, you need an iPad, you need a laptop, you need your trainer. A lot of people use smart trainers, and you got power meters, and you got your devices, and you got your swim goggles, and you got to go to the pool, and you got membership, and you got to drive there, and you got to get back, then you got to do the workout, run, same thing. It's like there's just a lot of fucking moving parts. And I think sometimes one of the reasons we want to like maybe separate or take a break, because I rarely ever, right, and now that I'm kind of talking, I rarely ever get an athlete that's like, hey, listen, all I want to do right now is ride, because that's a lot of very time. Same thing with swimming. It's always like running, like I want to run or I'm going to do strength, because those are just usually raw. Like there's not a lot that goes into it. So usually I think it's more of a result of high stress in other areas. They want to simplify their lives, but for some reason triathletes fight that urge to not do quote unquote triathlon related things all the time, instead of just kind of listening to, and because usually, right, it's your body telling you something. Your body is telling you, hey, like I don't have the additional bandwidth to do X, Y, and Z, or I'm tired of being inside. I need to be outside. Like I used the example, I think last week about like the freedom of choosing to sit in the stands and chat with other adults, other adult males that are my age while Hayden practice hockey versus spending time alone in the pool. Like I don't feel guilty for that. I'm listening to that urge. Like, and I did that. Like, why do I not want to, why do I want to do this? Or maybe it's because, yes, you can go to the hub and work, but you can still work from home a ton. You have limited time, right? It's like you're going to the office and you have a team around you. You have limited time to talk with other peers about just life. So maybe instead of fighting the urge, right, or feeling bad about swimming, listening to myself, like, hey, maybe I just need this for me. And I think we should do that more often. I think it's just interesting, like we talked about before, why we choose to fight the need and the desire and the want, right, to do something different or to just eliminate something, right? Because and I think that's like the permanent nature of our psychology, is we always think that the removal of something is permanent, right? And it's going to affect something permanently, versus something is telling me that this is okay. And instead of fighting the urge and like fighting and forcing myself to maybe go to the pool right now when I don't want to go, so I'm finding going, I don't like going, or I feel bad for not going to the pool, I could also just choose to embrace the fact that that's just where I am right now, and I'm comfortable with that. So I'll go run instead, enjoy my run, and not have guilt. Like if you had to choose which one of those persons to be, every person would choose, yeah, I'd rather choose the one where I get to go do the workout that I want to do and not feel guilty at the same time. Sign me up. But so many people find themselves in the other camp where they just start forcing it. And I had this call with an athlete last week. I said, I firmly believe that burnout is a straight up choice. Burnout in sport is a choice. It's a choice either parents put on their kids, or as we get older, burnout is a choice that we put on ourselves by forcing ourselves for too long of a period of time, right, to do one thing. And It's kind of like, you know, a rubber band. Like if you stretch it just enough, it's got the perfect tension, right? It can hold things together. It can do whatever it's needed to do. You know, you can fly it across the room at your third grade teacher, whatever you want to do with it. But if you pull on it too much, it snaps. And I think most athletes flirt way too much on that line, right? Where that tension line where the rubber band starts to lose a little bit of its color, right? It starts to like white out a little bit because you're pulling it so far apart. And they see that, they recognize that, they know it's about to snap, but they're like, I wonder if I can fit one more thing in here.
Yeah.
And then it snaps, and then it's over.
Yeah, burnout. I feel like it's an external pressure overload. You know, it's you know, we were talking about beforehand and how, like, I'm thinking about change, right? Like we have to really kind of decide what it is we really want and then stay true to that. I mean, you're talking about your situation where you're like, well, why do we feel like I should really go hang out with these people and sit in the stands? And that's like sort of a societal thing too. But like if your real mission is to kind of go inside yourself and you know, do what you really think at your core you want to do, which might be swim and do something better for your body. You know, there's like a guilt that comes with it. And I'm not, I mean, nobody's immune to that, right? It's sort of like, come on, just go out and, you know, hang out. And I get that. And we should do that sometimes. It's just that I think that it's really kind of about being clear on, you know, what it is you want. I mean, I think that question is simple, but it's really probably one of the more powerful questions. And I think that was what we casted on last time, right? Is what do you really want out of triathlon? Mm-hmm. And I think that doesn't, you know, I think the top level answer would be like, well, I want to finish faster, be strong. But like, is that, or, you know, not, or get a medal or whatever the case may be. But there's so many deeper questions that need to be answered, I think, there, because I've often said that I think people sort of get into triathlon kind of as a lot of times as sort of a midlife crisis type of thing. And it's sort of like, well, I need to do something different for myself. I need to go out and, you know, get in shape, right? And that's just such a, you know, vague statement, right? But I think really what it is a lot of times is something way deeper than that. You know, it feels like, man, I've gone through all this shit and I haven't done really what I wanted for me for a long, long time. You know, I've kind of just gone down the distraction road or whatever it might be, but now is the time for me to really attack that. But I think initially it sort of is driven by the pull of the excitement or the new change. And, you know, it's sort of like, there's another thing I was reading the other day. It was like, we can't ask for change and expect everything to be the same. You know, we want a new life, but we secretly want it to be delivered without disturbance. We want the comfort of the old world and the excitement of the new one. And I just think that, man, there's something really in there. And I struggle with it all the time, even though I talk about it, about really kind of finding what that real reason is underneath everything. And it doesn't have to be always clarified, but when you sit with yourself and really think about it or try to figure out what the real goal, I mean, because a lot of times I think triathlon becomes sort of at least it was for me, kind of a methodology of sort of kind of crushing some of my old habits or destroying like things that I was not crazy about or happy with, like a, you know, several year run of, you know, just kind of being carefree and loose and irresponsible and all that kind of stuff. And then I was like, all right, I need to put this on top of that without, you know, sort of, you know, letting go of that or being okay with it. You know, recently I've been just on this path of sort of like, okay, you know, I've done all this shit in my life and some good, some bad, whatever. I don't like it, but I'm okay with it because to me it becomes, all right, the lesson, you know, and now it's time to just be all right with that and then kind of understand what that is and then just use triathlon as or at least the training on some level to move through it, to be at peace with things and just really kind of go inside and take care of yourself first. And really I've been on kind of this like, you know, love yourself first thing kind of, you know, if you can't love yourself, you can't really love anyone else. So it's like, it's really one of those things where you have to really own that, you know what I mean? And that's not easy. And that's why I love that quote about, you know, we can't ask for change and expect everything to be the same because sometimes that's really rocky. it's a rocky road when you decide you want to change something, and you like, the first week, or it's like a diet or something. You diet and you're like, damn, I'm in. This is going great. I feels awesome. And then your body's like, wait a minute, you've been abusing me for the last 25 years. This isn't going to be that easy. So you really have to kind of sit with it and be patient with it, and expect that change to be a little bit painful.
We always tend to, and I think this is true for everyone. Like I was having this conversation this morning with, when we're very disciplined and in a zone and happy with it, we tout and, about the benefits and the necessity of being disciplined and motivated and committed. But when we don't feel that way and we waffle and we aren't sure of our direction, and maybe we're lacking in motivation or lacking in discipline, we tout balance. Oh, well, you got to have balance. And because right now you're not as disciplined. You want to make yourself feel good. So that's the buy-in you tell yourself, right? That's the story we tell ourselves. And I don't think either of them are wrong, but I also think, and when I told this athlete, it was like, yeah, but you're trying to tell me that, and I get it. I don't want to be disciplined 100% of the time either, but balance is also technically 50-50. So you can't also be balanced in certain areas and expect progress, because balance 50-50 isn't going to get you progress, right? 50% of the time you're doing the stuff you should do, and the other 50% of the time you shouldn't. So it evens out, you go nowhere. So I think there's, like, we all go through like ebbs and flows of what we want and what we don't want. But I love what you said about just listening, like you said about loving yourself and listening to that. And I think ultimately, like, we spend a significant amount of time asking ourselves about what races we should do. Are those important? 100%. And I've maybe or may not, my athletes have noticed, like, I haven't even sent out, like, usually like November, I'm already sent out, like, hey, what's your 2026 race calendar? What's A, B, and C? And this year I'm like, I think I'm just going to wait, because I think it can also put some athletes, they thrive. They've already told me, like, here's my A, B, C, D, E, F, and G races of the year. I'm going to treat them all like A races, but still I'm going to roll them out through G. And here's what I want. And that's to them, that's their comfort, right? That's what they love. That's what they want. That gives them like a sense of calm, right? To have a plan. Other athletes have no clue. And I think that's also encouraged, because when you tell people, hey, you've got to have a race calendar, it's really just for you, not for them, because they don't have to have one yet. You can just train and do it. But it's more about, like, what do you love and why do you love it? And if you do love it, why is that something that you feel like you do love? Then there's certain things that we like, and there's certain things that we need, and there's certain things that we want. Like, they're all in different buckets. But listening to those things, to me, is always the most important piece to continuing and having a long, career in just endurance sports and in life. But yeah, at some point you have to change. And some people will love to change. Some people never like to change. And I think the thing people have to understand the most about is, like, where you are right now at the core and who you are usually helps you dictate, like, what you like or what you don't like. Like, I know for me, I like puzzles. Like, I don't like sitting down and doing puzzles. I like people as puzzles, right? From a coaching standpoint, I like trying to figure out what works for certain people, and I like to figure out training. I just figure out that puzzle. Like, that to me is exciting. When it comes to coaching myself, less exciting, right? I know what works. I know what, will do well for me. I know what I need. I have all the knowledge that I need to be successful. So that's not very exciting for me. Right. But for other people that I don't know, or even that I've coached for years, it's still a challenge and a puzzle, and that excites me. And, like, that's something I'm trying to figure out, like, with my own, journey in sport and athleticism this year, is like, finding things that excite me and finding puzzles that I find exciting, right, with myself, that can kind of maybe get those competitive juices going again. But also, it also makes me crave those puzzles. Some people crave calm and predictable. And I'm also, like, I've always said, like, variety is for the weak. But, when you look at your training and your racing and what your life is telling you, like, sometimes you just again, I think we always force things a couple of weeks or even a couple of months, longer than we really should, instead of embracing it and being happy with it and understanding like, hey, like, why is this, why am I this way? Why am I so resistant to this? And sometimes, you probably don't want to ask, right? Maybe it's too much stress in your life, or maybe you need this, but just listening to what you need and what you want. And honestly, like sometimes I feel like as much as you would, maybe want to like bear down and figure out like why that is, like, it's also okay, I think, to not ask that question. And just, if you're feeling like it and you want to do it, then you just do it. And I think that I just think that there's way too much, I know we say this all the time, rigidity in so much of what we do, that we're void of the expressive nature of what, like we talked about before we went live, is like I talked about intuitive eating. Like, it's just, if you listen to your body, it'll tell you when it's hungry. Maybe you're not hungry at 11 o'clock every day, but you still feel like you have to eat 11 o'clock every day, just listening to what your body needs or doesn't need, right? And just paying attention versus trying to be of a certain, belief system when it comes to, diet and fueling and nutrition. Just listening to what your body is, or instead of just guessing, just listening. And I think that we guess and we want and we assume way more often than we just listen. And a lot of times that prevents us from actually having the experiences that we want to in sport and that we really need for ourselves, because we don't listen anymore. We don't listen to what we need. We don't listen to what we want. We don't listen to what we're kind of yearning for. We just assume and expect and are so comfortable, like you said about the whole change thing. Like you can't keep expecting, if you want change, for it to feel the same. It's going to feel different, but that's also okay. And I think that we are, like most triathletes, are creatures of habit. Like, we like the comfort of a set schedule and a set races. And, I've got tons of athletes, I'm sure you do. I mean, you're one of them. Like, you do the same race every year, right? Like, we love the predictability. We love all this, but sometimes, again, like, change means, things have to change. And yes, that might induce stress, but that also doesn't mean that on the other side of that stress isn't something that's happier, better, more fulfilling for you, whatever it is, whatever sport it is, whatever distance it is, whatever training volume it is. We continue to fight. It's like we're scared to look over the other side of the fence, the wall, and what might be there, because it might take a lot of effort to get up to the wall, get up and take a look over, and we're not sure what's there. It might be worse, it might be better. And if it is better, oh my God, then what are we gonna do? Then we got to make a decision. We got to go up and over the wall, and we got to go back, go over the side that's better, instead of just, taking a look and being explorative in what we really want from ourselves. And it might be like way too deep for most people. And again, I'm not asking you to have this conversation with yourself every day, but, if you find yourself flirting with different things or being completely, disengaged with things, then it's time to ask, and if you can't answer it, then that's also okay, but don't force it, because that's how you learn to like hate something, right? Like you keep taking your kid to do something that they hate, like there's like at the hub yesterday, I went in for a little bit, and there was a mom that's brought her oldest son in, and he is just like, has no motivation to do anything ever, period. Every time he comes in, it's like a drag to get him. He's like 14, 15 years old. Doesn't play sports, doesn't do anything, and she's just like in total disarray about it. I can't get him to swim. He just he wants to run, but he's not very good at it, and I'm like, well, have you ever asked him like why he feels that way? Like why doesn't he feel like he's motivated? Or what is he motivated to do? Or maybe he's depressed. Like there's always an underlying reason underneath whatever it is. You don't always have to look, but again, like the important thing is just to listen. And again, you and I don't have the answers. We've never said we have all the answers on this podcast, and you might not have them either. But again, I think the point is just to listen and not turn a blind eye or a deaf ear to what your body and your mind and your soul is probably trying to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the essence of it, right? Like I can't say how much it's like, I was talking before with you again about, I was listening to Alan Watts, but I think it was a Hippocrates quote, but the quote is, freedom isn't having what you want, it's wanting what you already have. And that's the thing I've been sitting with so much lately. And you mentioned Wisconsin, right? I am signed up. This is the earliest probably ever been signed up since my first one. It's like, but the level of like excitement difference is about 100% difference. It was just sort of something. It was almost like I just said, all right, I'm probably going to do it. Let's just do it and get it out of the way. It's sort of like, whatever's in front of you, just do it and get it out of the way. It's another kind of life approach I've been trying to take. It's sort of like, if you see something and think of it, just get it out of the way, just do it, because it'll hang in your subconscious somewhere. Right. So I'm in already, but I'm not like overly excited about it. I'm not worried about it. I'm not depressed about it. I'm not anything about it, but I'm really more trying to lean into being excited with what I have in front of me, and what the opportunities are to sort of be a better person, be a better athlete, be a better, just like really be true to myself, I guess is a better way to put it. Sort of like what you're saying is beautiful, because I think sometimes we feel like doing certain things. And I mean, I'm real, like, I try to get my athletes to understand that on a daily basis, especially now. It's sort of like, I don't, if you don't feel like doing that, do something else, but do something, and it could be reading. I don't care, but just like wherever you need to go to kind of figure yourself out a little bit more, I think that's important. And if you feel good about going for a run, or, I just, there's this, I think, overwhelming societal pressure about whatever you're doing is selfish, It really, I think it's a little thing, but it's a huge thing. If you think about some of the, most impactful humans in history, and you think about a continuum of like being focused and doing what they want to do, or, just giving everything to everybody else. I mean, there's Einstein and Tesla and people like that who have basically lived a life in isolation, just working on their passion, and they become the best. And I think you can translate that into a lot of triathletes too, that pour their heart and soul into it, and they're on top for a reason. But the rest of us are kind of on a continuum with that. And we have to kind of come to terms with how much of that we want to be. Like, I feel like I'm 100% vested in becoming my best person, but I don't know if that means pouring 30 hours a week in a triathlon. In fact, I know it doesn't mean that, but I can be super true to who I am and what I want to do, and gradually improve and get better in general, rather than, like, I'm not trying to, invent the light bulb or, electricity or anything like that. So, I mean, we just have to be comfortable with who that is inside of us. And I think that being able to feel comfortable about taking time for yourself and doing what you feel like doing is really important. I just think it needs to be really guided with honesty and belief in where you're going.
Yeah, exactly. Like belief in where you're going. And I think and I think sometimes, but here, the biggest thing too, is like, you have to sometimes start a route or start a journey unsure of the destination or why you're on it, to kind of figure it out, right? Because if you don't, then you're still on your old journey, right? You're still doing the same thing you've always done. You're signing up for, Wisconsin in June or July, and you're doing the same thing over and over again. And this year you signed up, 6 years ahead of, schedule, and things are different, so you have to start that journey. And like you said, like, doing it for yourself should be the only thing that matters. You shouldn't keep doing events or races or whatever for, like you said, it's like, and I agree to an extent, and I get what they're saying. I mean, like, they always talk about AA it's a very selfish program. And if it's not a selfish, but I think what they mean by that, right, is like, if you're not selfish with taking care of yourself, then you're never going to be able to take care of anybody else. Right, because you're going to be a drunk, right? Or if you put, stock in, I'm going to stay sober for so and so, and then, like if I had said, oh, I'm going to stay sober for Allie, and then, we had, broken up, then I would go back drinking again. Like, so you have to make it a selfish program, and you have to do things for yourself and make decisions for yourself so you can stay that way. But if you continue to have do that, then you'll have those other things. You'll be able to take care of people better. And I think that's ultimately, the price of the prize. And I think that we, like you said about, all the incredible things that have been, invented or, like that have, people that have produced certain things, like, yeah, I mean, you have to be selfish with certain things, and that's also okay, to protect your time, to say no, right? To do things like you have to do those things. And I think that's like one of the most empowering things to do is to be selfish in certain areas of your life so you can be completely selfless. And that's because most people aren't selfish enough. They continue to give and give and give and try to fill a role or fill a void or live up to, a certain standard or wear a mask 24/7 and just kind of walk the walk because they feel like that's what they're supposed to do, and they're miserable. Miserable. I mean, I have this conversation almost daily with certain athletes in Training Peaks. I'm like, you're giving your whole soul and your whole health to a company and a group of friends or coworkers that wouldn't bat an eye if you left the next day. And in 20 years, what are you going to be left with? And all you've done is sacrifice your health, sacrifice your sleep, sacrifice time with your kids for what? To have some extra meetings and do some, other extra things at work. And you've just let yourself continue to degrade health-wise, fitness-wise, personality-wise, right? You become more resentful. You become more jaded. You become more irritable. All in the name of what? Living up to a standard that you think people want you to stick to at work. Yes, finding a different job is not easy. But living a life of misery, owned by people who don't care about you as an individual, that's hell. And you can either continue to live it, and gut through it, and it's going to be cutting decades off your life, or you can just, try to make a decision to make changes and take that leap. But like you said, you can't expect change to still be the same. Something's going to have to change. And I think that we're so fearful of those things to make those decisions of or what people might think, or then a lot of times, like people, when you stick around way too long in one thing, that becomes your identity, right? Even if it's a bad identity, it's an identity you're ashamed of. It is just who you've become. And so now you don't even know what might be different. Right? Like that was one of the most uncomfortable parts of, like when I got sober was like, I don't know what the fuck to do, like with my life, at this point, I was in my, early to mid 30s and you're just like, it was uncomfortable to like, be an upstanding citizen and like not be drunk every day and like have, clear thoughts and be responsible. Like this really doesn't feel right because you're so used to being the total opposite. And I think, honestly, that's why a lot of people go back to drinking is because it's familiar, right? The hangovers, the need, the bars, the drinking, the whatever else, all the mischief you get into and the despair and the vicious cycle of guilt and shame and then regret. Like that's what you're just used to. And so you find yourself kind of like falling back into it, or you do things to put those cycles back into your life, right? And the same thing goes for what we choose to do with our life, with training or in sport. Is like we just become so accustomed to doing X, Y, and Z that we just continuously like that. We feel like that's our only answer when there's usually like a whole lot of answers, to a lot of these things. And we just don't listen, and we're afraid to make these judgments and these, to do things, but it's about exploring. It's not about, the longer you stay in a box, the darker it gets. And you don't know what's on the other side. You don't know what else there is to do. And that's like, I think that's one of the people are so afraid to do, and afraid to veer out and explore and listen. And, it's like, I guess slightly off topic, but somewhat, but this last weekend I was in Dallas doing High Rocks Dallas, and we can talk about that later. But Alex sent me this, because Hayden's all about hockey. And I know we talked about the Minnesota hockey program, like how they're all about people doing, as many sports as possible. And she sent me this article and said the Edina Hornets football team, which is like, Edina's like the
Edina.
biggest. Yeah, I mean, it's just like fucking like dynasties after dynasty of hockey. And she said the Edina Hornets football team just won their first Minnesota State championship since 1978 with the Chicago Blackhawks first-round draft pick playing his senior year at quarterback, and the hockey team's goalie scoring 6 touchdowns in the title game. Play sports, have fun, nothing like it.
Yeah.
Like, you're a first round draft pick for NHL team, and you're still going out and playing high school football with your buddies. And it's just like the amount of like how far we get as adults from that is like light years away from that in distance and in like what we get from the sport.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing, because it really, the first thought I had when you said that was that they were just doing that because they enjoy it and they're having fun with it and it feels good and it's something they want to do. And you can get, I'm sure they'll have plenty of time to do hockey drills the next 15 years. I mean, that's just what's going to happen, right? And then I always think about like how when you always have to have like a purpose behind everything you do every day, like in a purpose that becomes sort of just being good and programming yourself to do certain things well, without filling your soul maybe at some point. But it reminded me of, because I've been doing a lot of inner searching lately and thinking about stuff like that, and back to my days in the news business and how literally every day I went there, I was tense. It was somewhere I didn't want to be. It was like it was a battleground for me mentally. And I can remember just not being myself most of the time, and it literally is a trauma-filled period of my life in a lot of ways that I'm not blaming it on anybody. It was, I didn't have to stay there. Nobody was making me stay there, but it was just for whatever reason, it was just, I spent 13, 14 years in corporate America doing that. Something that was really kind of batting against, pounding against my soul or something. And I'm looking at that now going, and how it translates to me, it was really the impetus for me to kind of get into triathlon in some ways. I needed to break a cycle, and I did. And I used to write about it a lot. And I would always talk about how triathlon is breaking up the rocks inside of me. And it was a metaphor for, just all this tension that was built for many, many years in a job and a career that was not sitting well with who I was as a person. And I pushed through it, and it was breaking up rocks. But like over the last, several years or many years in triathlon, I kind of feel like I have this, battle axe inside me that I'm kind of just still hammering with. But I kind of feel my body is not as free anymore, and I'm tight. I'm strong, but I'm pushing through things that, after a while just kind of wear you down if you're not free. So I'm really kind of into this idea of really kind of healing some inner tension, I guess is the best way to put it, and really being in true connection with where I want to go and the direction and how I want to do it, because I do feel like that, a lot of, especially, I talk with a lot of athletes and about these same types of things is like, tight and tired, and it just feels forced and all these kinds of things. And I think sometimes that situation where you have, you kind of want something to change, but then you sort of want to hold on to the old and then keep the new. But it's that conflict is what causes the anxiety. I think sometimes is like you're going in two worlds at once. And sometimes it's important to kind of just step back and take a breath and sort of like look and say, hey, where do I really want to go? How do I want to kind of get back to this free-spirited sort of approach and this kid-like vibe where I'm not overthinking everything and I'm just doing it because it feels right and I want to have fun with it. And, because you can push through it for a long time. And I think that kind of gets lost, with a lot of people, because you can still get it done, and that's kind of what I've been sort of doing, but I've been looking for these other avenues and trying to figure out what that means. You talk about like, changing diet or something like that. And last night was like, it's so weird because, you if you can just stop it for a second and take a few breaths and think about what you're doing. Cause I was subconsciously last night, I was just like, I just had this crazy urge to order a pizza and it was so easy. I just pulled up the number on my phone. I took a break. I went, wait, what? That's not really what I want to do right now. It's just something I feel like I need. It's almost like that alcohol thing you're talking about. Cause it just feeds an area of your body that's like yearning for something of the past, you know what I mean? Or something like that. And I think it just can really filter into different areas of our lives. And I just stopped for a minute and I'm like, you know what? And then it became a kind of a fun venture. It's like, well, there's got to be something here that I can do. And I just figured out something else to eat or whatever. But don't have to spend, $25-$30 on a pizza. And here I am, just kind of calming down and eating something that's probably not as, it doesn't, I don't want to like, cause I do that all the time, but like, I just want to be a little more conscious of it, I think, because it's so easy to just be unconscious with every decision and just go down these roads. But I think sometimes with working out, even it's like, I don't want to do that right now. I'll just take a few minutes and think about it. And then maybe it'll come around in a little bit, it may not be the right thing for you at the moment, but if you can kind of change your mindset just a little bit, it can make a huge difference. And I think those are the simple, as Goggins probably calls them, 1 minute decision, that can really be impactful if we give it a chance, make the right little, step in the right direction.
Yeah. And separating now and forever. Like you said, like a lot of athletes right now are like, God, I don't want to go to the pool, or I don't want to go run, or I don't want to ride my bike, or I don't want to go to the gym, or, I don't know if I want to, do this, what I'm going to do this year. Like, that doesn't mean you won't want to do all those things forever.
Right. That's good.
But everybody gets so, because and that's, I think that's one of the many, not many, but I guess one of the few negatives, right, there is about certain personalities in sport is that, having a plan and wanting a routine, like you have to see it as it is going to be continuous. I have to have a schedule. I have to have a plan. This is my count. This is what I do. So if I don't know what I'm going to do, then I don't have a plan. And that puts me in chaos and turmoil and inconsistency. And that makes me, less likely to succeed. Like, I get that part. Like, people, most people thrive on routine. They thrive on, being, knowing what to expect. And I think that, but looking too far, you go from, like what there is to expect, and then you move to expectations, right? That you're going to continuously have these for a specific amount of time. And if you don't, then you're just in continuous chaos. Instead of like, this week, I am going to do this and this, and I don't want to do this, and that's okay. I will revisit this next week. And it's when the shame game comes into play that people start to like really retreat from figuring out what they want to love, because like, they don't want to do this. You're like, oh, well, you should be doing this, or we got to do this. And yeah, to some extent, if you want to achieve a goal, right, you can't just not do something, in order to increase your likelihood of meeting said goal. Yes, there are certain requirements and prerequisites you need to accomplish in order to, increase the likelihood of you achieving said goal. Yes. But does it have to be perfect year round? No. It doesn't mean you're, a little a little, farther away. Yeah, maybe this week, but it might bring you closer as you get closer to race day. Like I had this, made this comment yesterday to an athlete that was like, hey, like and he was like, I want you to know that like I feel like I have to make every session work all the time, every single day, or I'm letting myself down and it's gotta be perfect. And I was like, listen, I only expect you to be 100% at one thing. And I expect you to be 100% at doing 70 to 80% of the work. That's it. Do 70 or 80% of the work 100% of the time. Right? So let's just, from this day forward, you and I are a brand new car and I just took my key down the side of it. It's no longer perfect. Right? So now we can just not worry about not scratching it. We don't have to park it, at the back parking lot in the back corner and, freak out if our kids spill, or be careful opening your door. Like, the amount of stress is like almost not worth it. So there, I went and scratched it, and now we can both go ride. And oops, I went and spilled, Kool-Aid in the backseat too. But we're not going to clean it. We're just going to keep rolling. Like, it's both stressful, but also like, oh, okay, this is kind of how, how we do things. And I think like the removal of like that stress is just so important, especially when most people that get into these sports do it because their stress is so high in certain areas. And then you just continue to add it. And I think that's, yeah, some people need extra, more routine and more, but I think accountability is also like a word that gets thrown around to where you have someone's always looking to make sure you're doing everything right. And I don't know that that's true, as a coach, because there's a lot of ways to be, successful. And I'm sure that, you and I get put in the, way too holistic camp, about things and not data driven enough. But, we get a lot of really fucking good results and our athletes are pretty happy. And in order to do that, you have to keep people accountable. But a lot of times it's just keeping them accountable to themselves, not the training, to themselves. Like, is it making you happy? How are you feeling? Is this good? And is it holding them accountable, like that conversation I had earlier talked about earlier with somebody in there, what they're doing with work. That's the accountability that matters, right? Because that's the stuff that really makes and creates positive change for a person, an athlete. It's not about berating them because their run cadence wasn't perfect or they haven't been in the pool in a week or two. I mean, if that was the case, I'd be freaking lashing myself for the last, month, but it's like, there's not really a huge place in that, maybe for the elite levels. But honestly, like, I'm sure a lot of them are, probably miserable half the time too. It's a different life that we live. And so we got to quit comparing ourselves to those things, and not just elites, but anyone else that's outside of you, your brain, your heart, your mind, your soul, and your life. Comparing yourself to anybody else is you're it's not just barking up the wrong tree. It's just you're heading down someone else's road. And I think that's, again, just reminding yourself this time of year, especially when things have slowed down and you're far away from races, you're far away from that calendar, maybe things are more flexible, the noise should be less, hopefully. Take more time to listen. And then that's when you can really find out what you need and really find out what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, man, the journey of change is not easy. And there's a thing I have. A lot of times I go to bed feeling like $1 million and I'll wake up feeling like $1. I have a great outlook. Everything's going to be great. And then I wake up and maybe, my stomach will be a little bit off in the morning, or, I'll feel like groggy or whatever the case may be. It's not always, but sometimes it happens. And then I've recently come to this thing where I'm like, I pay attention. That's the old me sulking. It's like, hey, I need more attention. And I've kind of just started looking at it like that. And it's like, all right, this sucks. I don't feel good. Nothing's right now, but just don't give it too much power. So that's kind of how I'm dealing with these. Because, when we are changing, when we get back in the groove, when, trying to get our shit together and really doing something good for ourselves, there is going to be friction, man. And I just think it's important to keep that top of mind and realize that friction is probably, just your old self saying, hey, wait a minute over here. Don't forget about me. So it's painful, but it's just, if you kind of acknowledge it and move forward, I think it helps.
I love it. Move forward and hope it helps. And take that mentality in your turkey trot and go.
Yeah, man,
dust
be free.
Yeah, be free. Run with feathers if you want to. That's your Thanksgiving podcast. As always, we love you guys and we appreciate you. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com, and there's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you need anything from Mike, he is available. Mike at c26triathlon.com. If you need anything from me, Robbie at c26triathlon.com.
All right, buddy. Have a great Thanksgiving, man.
Yeah, you too, man. Talk to you soon.
All right.